Hey guys, so just before this video begins, I just want to let you know that both of these stories have been submitted by you guys, that's subscribers. So if any of yous listening to this have any stories that you'd like me to narrate, just check the description below. You can find the email address to send it to. Remember to let me know if you want to stay anonymous or if you'd like a shout out, and change any names and locations of anything that you don't want to be said in the story. But like I say, guys, if you have any stories that you want me to narrate, any of your own personal experiences, please don't hesitate to send them over. I hope you enjoyed these stories, guys. Here is a story of my camping trip that I hinted at in your video comments. Let me start by telling you a little about myself. I describe myself as a neo-pagan and I follow a lone path, not adhering to structured ways, although I will go along to some meetings, just because I am curious. My gran had always told us not to fear the dead, as it is the living that are dangerous, so I grew up knowing where the dangers were and that horror movies were just stories and the monsters were actors. My mother told me that when I was very young, I spoke of a man in a grey suit that visited me, and apparently the next door neighbours said that that was the previous tenant that had been laid out in the room that I was born. I am a believer but also a skeptic, looking for the possible explanations before declaring anything supernatural. My holidays were always under canvas and in or around historical, mostly prehistoric settings. I had read about a reputed haunted site that was supposed to be evil and decided that that would be my next destination. This was back in the 80s when I packed up my car and drove south to where I was going to investigate whether it really was haunted or not. I arrived at my destination and set up camp. There were other people camping there and a couple of middle-aged men came over to speak to me. They were nothing special, nor were they any different to Joe Public, but their manner was a little unsettling when they asked me if I knew the reputation of the place, and I replied that it was for that reason that I was there. They then became almost overbearing and told me that for my own good, it would be better for me to leave. I am an army veteran, having served in Northern Ireland during the 70s conflict, and I am not easily intimidated, so I told them that no harm would come to me. They left, talking to themselves and with the odd look back at me. I went about my chores of cooking, eating, and dish cleaning, and settled myself down outside to look at the night sky and wait for anything to happen. Or not. As it became dark, the people came out of their tents and camper vans dressed in white gowns that reminded me of the KKK but without hoods, and went into the woods that were next to the field, and before long, a glow informed me that they had lit a fire. This was followed by singing and then chanting, almost like Gregorian chants that went on for a couple of hours. I was armed with some cans of beer and was slowly drinking them when they came back. 3 of them approached me and the obvious leader told me that if I didn't leave before midnight, I was in danger, and to prove it, my beer would be stale to the taste. I was sitting down with my legs together and just carried on drinking my beer that tasted fine. I finished that can and said, rather mockingly, that my beer was fine and that he should not try to curse me, opening my legs to reveal a scrying mirror. Now, I don't know what these people believed, so I stood up and walked around my tent, chanting. It was utter rubbish really, but it looked the part. I now came face to face and told him that I set a spell that anyone that tried to do physical or magical harm to me would receive it back threefold, and that my mirror would be pointed towards them until daybreak. If I had taken a lie detector test, I would have failed it. They went back to their camp, and needless to say, I had a good night's sleep, and when I awoke the next morning, they had already gone. I do not believe in God, Satan, or Christ, and believe that there is no absolute good or evil, that we do things with an ulterior motive, and I am sure as hell not going to be intimidated by anyone threatening me with all these things. If these people wish to believe it, then they are their own worst enemy, because Most of it is psychosomatic, and the rest I can't explain just yet. I hope that this entertains or even amuses you, and as you see, not all horror stories have bad endings. The amusing part is that I chanted mumbo jumbo and they bought it as they saw that I was not afraid, and maybe they actually believed that my magic was stronger than theirs. You can, if you so wish, use this and edit it in any way that you see fit. If you do use it, I am not bothered if you use my first name. Just remember that most things that go bang in the night are due to loose fittings and some loose screws. This is something that happened to me about 5 hours ago. It's 6 AM now and the sun is just beginning to rise. I haven't slept all night. It all started at about 8 PM last night. I had booked the Friday off work so as to have a 3-day weekend, and my partner had Sunday, today, Monday and Tuesday off. Due to the nature of our respective jobs, we rarely get days off that align, and so the Saturday evening and Sunday day were somewhat important to us. Now, my girlfriend, she's a lightweight when it comes to late nights, often turning in for bed at 9 or 10 PM. I, on the other hand, like to burn the midnight oil, so to speak, and never go to bed before midnight. Because it was rare for our days off to be together, my girlfriend promised she would stay up late with me as to make the most of it. Earlier in the day, from excitement, I got us a multi-pack of energy drinks to share that would keep us going to the wee small hours. Fast forward, and I've opened a can of energy drink and drank about a third of it, and my girlfriend has fell asleep on the sofa. It's 11:30 PM, not a bad effort by her standards. I decided to stay up, not feeling tired this early at the best of times, and now currently pumped up on sugar and caffeine. I stay up playing Dead Space, hitting up a few games on my PSP that I recently bought off eBay, and watching shitty videos of people losing their shit. Before I knew it, it was 12:30. I looked at my dog, who was a little on edge. My girlfriend had half woke up and retired to bed, and I had stayed down. Usually, I go up with her and just watch TV or mess around on the iPad, but tonight, I opted to stay down. This must have confused our dog, who didn't really know whether to go to bed with her or stay down and stay up with me. 12 turned to 1 AM and still, I wasn't even feeling a wrinkle of tiredness. I looked at my dog, who looked at me, and I had the great idea to walk the dog. I hadn't actually walked the dog today, because I had been dealing with some personal matters with my dad. Nothing bad, just helping him with a few bits now he was living alone and getting a bit older. I had been out since waking at 9 AM and had only got home at 6:30. My dog is used to walks upwards of 2 hours most days, and we, very, very rarely, if ever, don't get the chance to walk her. I decided I had to at least give her one lap of the block, just to get some air and stretch those gangly legs she had. This was the first unusual thing of the night. What possessed me to do this? I have never walked the dog this late. Not once. Not even a few years back with our old dog Kevin, when I worked night shift. I know it sounds a bit too much, but did I consciously make this decision, or was something pulling me out? Well, I collar the dog, touch her lead, and off we go. Straight away, something is off. It's just a feeling at this point, and my dog seems unfazed, but as I previously said, I worked nights and I was a security guard that patrolled an old abandoned manor house. Historic, and potentially haunted if the stories were to be believed, that was surrounded by dense woodland. I knew an uneasy feeling, and this was unlike anything I'd felt in the comfort of my own neighbourhood. I closed my garden gate carefully, contemplating just going back in, but looking at my dog pull on her lead to press onwards. We stepped down, and this freak gust of wind sent 3 empty coffee cups hurtling our way. A bit of litter is hardly an honourable mention, but stick with me on this. Our street was deserted and my garden is slightly elevated. I believe I would have seen the scraps of litter on the ground, but I didn't. Also, there are no coffee shops in a 3 or 4 mile radius of my home, the nearest being in our local town, and our street is always devoid of litter. Finally, the cups hurtled loudly, like a crappy jump scare in a film where they just turn up the volume to catch you out. It made both me and my dog jump and sounded so out of place. I watched the cups carefully as we passed, thinking they might jump at me. Now, honestly, I'm on edge, but I walk up the familiar street towards the field we walk on in the daytime. It's not lit at all, so I wasn't going there. I was just heading that way. The entire time, this uneasy feeling following me as we walk. We are walking down the street and my dog is stopping at every single lamppost, every single garden fence or gate, and every single driveway and just sniffing. My dog is the sort of dog that doesn't even sniff another dog's piss trail, let alone a random fence with no recognisable stain whatsoever. I know that's not scary, but again, it's a bit odd. The next bit here is probably the weirdest thing. Not the scariest, but really weird and, to be honest, random. Out of the blue comes this loud horn sound, like a freight train, from the tiny side road we're walking down. As in, this freight train, it sounded feet away from us. I jumped and gripped the dog's lead. The dog recoiled with a tail between her legs. I turned to look. The road was empty. Nothing in sight. I fumbled for the lead and beckoned my dog to come on, picking up the pace. It's weird. I knew that noise was unnatural, so I didn't stick around, scratching my head, trying to find its source. I booked it out of there. So we continue down this street and the layout is weird. The street basically cuts through a trail on either side. To one side is this dodgy path that loops around the circumference of a private fishing lake and leads to a large field. The other side is a small walking trail that has thick bush and trees either side and isn't at all lit. This trail is fairly wild and unnatural, but is out of place. It's slap bang in the middle of a built-up housing area. But hey, I'm not complaining. My dog loves walking off the lead on the trail. So, I'm about to head past it. Again, we aren't going down the trail. Like I say, it's not at all lit and I ain't risking getting mugged. My plan was to walk down past it, walk on the sidewalk adjacent to the field I usually take my dog, loop back around another neighbourhood and onto the main road, which I could then follow down to my side street and then head home. A decent enough walk for my dog, and safe enough for me, sticking to well-lit areas. Well, as I approach the trail, I am on the left side of the road, which is the side with the dodgy path. The path can't be seen from the sidewalk as you have to cross a small gravel lot, and the trail to the right side of the road was obscured to me by a tall fence of a neighbouring garden. I'm still feeling uneasy after the phantom freight train, and to be honest, I'm looking over my shoulders regularly. I think my dog was beginning to pick up on it, but that didn't matter. My dog stopped, close to the trail, and wouldn't budge. She began whimpering. I had this terribly fearful feeling in the pit of my stomach. I began to lead the dog across the road and back the way we came. But then, I heard it. Intense, angry whispers coming from the trail to the right. I was freaking, and in the moment, I just stopped dead and looked. I didn't run or shout back. I just froze, suspended in that moment for what felt like an eternity. Nothing ever came, but admittedly, I never went to look to see if there was anyone or anything on that path. The way we went was up a small side street about 30 feet away from the trail on the right. Basically, the houses that I was walking by, their back gardens backed onto the small but dense woodland next to the trail, where I had heard the angry whispering. As me and my dog are walking up this road, which to anyone who knows UK roads are not straight and this one curved round, I had this overwhelming sense that something was following me, that something was going to happen. Now, at this point, I was unsure as to whether it was a mugger or something less explainable, but nevertheless, the feeling was there and it was strong. Suddenly, more gusts of strong wind began attacking from every angle, wind hitting my face. It felt like a hurricane and it felt like it was just affecting me. The bushes and trees in my immediate vicinity would shake and rustle in the wind, but bushes and trees just across the road weren't budging. I was darting looks to my left and to my right, looking behind me every couple of seconds. I have honestly never felt dread like this. I'd honestly say I'm quite a skeptical person, though. Reading this back, you wouldn't have guessed, but in my opinion, it just shows how intense I perceive these happenings. So, once again, I pick up the pace, basically jogging at this point, and I'm super paranoid. Like I say, I'm looking around constantly and can see no one. Imagine my confusion when I could hear heavy footsteps, like those from a pair of shit flickers coming up behind me. The unmistakable sharp slap of formal shoes on concrete sidewalk. I'd turn around and see nothing. I'd still hear the footsteps, but could never place their whereabouts. At this point, this whole sordid experience was making me numb to the fear. My fear had peaked and had now plateaued out to paralysis. This road that arched around had a small path at one corner where, when you walked down it, it would take you to a small area with garages and a small lot, and that in turn would lead to a slightly busier road that would lead to my house. I crossed the garage lot at pace and stopped roadside. I looked back. I didn't want to, but something urged me to. Even now, hours later, I regret that decision. I looked back and stood 60 feet away from me in the abandoned garage lot I had just been walking across seconds ago was this tall, shadowy figure clad from head to toe in thick, black robes that spilled and piled around it like black water. The figure was shadowy and almost invisible, yet it demanded my attention. The dreaded feeling of almighty power was palpable, and in one hand it donned a long, thin stick, taller than its own hunched-over figure. All of a sudden, its free arm extended and pointed towards me, its sleeve hanging like a black flag. Then came the howl of the wind, and the gusts hit me soon after. My dog was whimpering, hackles raised, ears down, tail packed tightly between its legs. My dog, she wet herself, and to be honest, I didn't even let her finish. I basically dragged her across the road and up our street. I fumbled with the keys in my hand and desperately struggled to unlock my door. I slammed the door behind me, locked it, and bolted it. Being in a familiar environment, I began to calm down. I took off my coat and sat momentarily on my sofa with my dog, stroking her to try and put her at ease. She seemed on edge, understandably, and I struggled to calm her. I went to ensure the back door was locked, came through the living room and went over to the front door to double check that was locked too. I turned around to beckon my dog upstairs and heard the sound of a plate falling off the side in the kitchen onto the floor and smashing. I raced over to see, switching the light on, and found the room empty. There was no plate on the floor, none on the side for that matter. I came back into the living room, basically swept my 25-kilogram dog up in my arms, headbutted the light switch off on my way past, and ran up the stairs into my bedroom, closing and locking the bedroom door behind me. I put my dog down on her bed and she was whimpering. I went over to the door and pressed my ear against it. And I swear on my life, I could hear what sounded like footsteps racing up and down the stairs, back and forth, back and forth. This went on for the minute or so I had my ear against the door and seemed to stop when I finally pulled away. I looked back over to my dog who was staring intently at the door. When I again put my ear to the door, I could hear rustling and light banging coming from the hallway at the bottom of the stairs. I know this just sounds silly, but I just ignored it. I felt safe in my locked bedroom and didn't want to draw attention to whatever it was that was in my house. I went to bed and lay there for hours. I ended up turning the lights off and lying in a suspended state of fear, trying to sleep but knowing it was futile. I was laying in the darkness and, seemingly out of nowhere, my dog began whimpering. I flicked on the lamp next to my bed and saw her lying on her side, twitching and making that half-bark noise. She was having a nightmare. This isn't weird at all, except my dog is 18 months old and I've had her since a pup. She has never had a nightmare. Not that I've seen anyway. Coincidence? I called her name a few times and she woke. Straight away, she looked towards the door. I looked over to it too. It was open, wide open, and most notably, unlocked. I gasped, leapt out of bed, slammed it shut and locked it again. I woke my partner immediately and asked if she had unlocked it at some point. Already knowing the answer, I had been laying next to her all night. She hadn't. She seemed unfazed and fell back to sleep. I stayed up, wide-eyed, all manner of noises crawling through the house, most probably explainable, but in my heightened state of fear, everything was evil. Everything was abnormal. Like I say, it's dawn now and nothing has happened for an hour or two. I'm just lay here, waiting for my partner to wake to tell her what had happened. Now, I'm not a believer in the paranormal, and other than this, I've never had any experiences whatsoever to refute my belief, which makes this all the more insane. The fear and the entire experience was so intense. It's only been a short while, but I feel that this changes everything for me. Hey guys, Brothers Jackson here. I really hope you enjoyed this video. These stories, like I say, were submitted by subscribers. If you feel like you have a story that you want me to tell, check the description below for the email address. Make sure you tell me whether you want to remain anonymous or not. And remember to change any names and locations that you don't want to be stated, anything like that. But please guys, if you've got any stories you want me to narrate, send them over. Thank you very much for your support guys, and peace out. Oh, and a big thank you to the 2 subscribers who submitted these stories. If they end up, well, one of them wanted to remain anonymous, the other one said I could use his name if I wanted it. I've decided not to, just in case, but if he wants to comment and say anything, that's fine. Thank you so much guys, peace out.